Josh Snider. You're watching Thoughtful Discussions, and I'm here with.
Tim Engelhardt. I'm a visual artist, working in oil paintings and murals. Pretty much anything that really suits my fancy at the time, but primarily abstract oil painting and murals when I can get them.
Awesome. How do you go about finding murals?
Luck. So I use a website that got me started, Thumbtack.
Okay.
And I would post just what I do.
Yeah.
Muralist, visual artist, and people will put up what they're looking for as far as the muralists go. And I just start bidding on jobs, and I got one, and then it was like a year, and before I got another one.
Okay.
And then it's one after another.
Right.
And oftentimes I'll get one job, and someone will see me painting the mural, and that'll lead to a second job,
Right.
which sometimes leads to a third and
Right.
fourth. And the mural I just finished is a result of a job I bid on last summer.
Okay.
So that's 6 jobs off of one bid,
Right.
as a result. So,
Amazing.
so that's primarily how I get them. I scour the internet.
Yeah.
I think I've had 1 or 2 from Craigslist,
Cool.
Nextdoor.
Mm-hmm.
That the app Nextdoor.
Right.
So that's primarily how I have got my murals.
Awesome.
A little bit of word of mouth here and there, but not a whole lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. What other visual arts do you do?
Oil painting is really that's really where my heart is.
Yeah.
As much as I enjoy painting murals, it's not what I want to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to be done with it 5-6 years.
Gotcha.
That might be a little ambitious, but that's the goal I'm shooting for. And this is my 5th year since quitting my job to do this full time.
Awesome.
I'm on the cusp of having to go back for a part-time job, but
Does it feel like that all the time?
no, this time it's real.
This time it's real?
Yeah,
Okay.
this time it's real. I mean, when times are good, they're really good, but when times are bad, it's really hard, and it's a strain on my wife.
Yeah.
Who really gives me a lot of support in doing this.
Yep.
So, but really, it's the work on canvas, on wood, that I really enjoy. It's more intimate. It's more an expression of who I am,
Right.
and my influences and what I enjoy doing.
Mm.
And I can get lost in it. I just go down to I have a studio in my basement.
Yeah.
And I just go down and I just paint, and I have several projects going on at the same time.
Yep.
And I don't stick to the one genre all the whole time. Sometimes, primarily it's abstract, landscaped, abstract kind of stuff.
Okay.
I'm not even sure what category you'd fit it in. It's it's some abstraction, some expressionism, some landscape, impression,
Right.
But I also like to do pop art from time to time and mess around with spray paint, and experiment.
Yeah.
Just to keep things loose.
Nice. Did you use a can or a brush for your last mural?
A can.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a monster.
Yeah.
It was. In fact, I started using spray paint last summer
Okay.
for the outdoor murals, specifically for time.
Yeah.
I some friends of mine use spray paint a lot, and I started getting curious about it.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I used spray paint on a mural was at Westinghouse Academy. I did a mural inside the high school.
Okay.
And I used spray paint as part of it. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And so I just made an effort to use it more and more.
Right. Fine tune some of the caps and get a better handle on it.
Yeah. Now it's like, just give me 20 skinnies and a couple fat caps. Yeah. It's
Right.
nuts. Because a year ago I was using it, but I was just using the caps that it came with.
Right.
I still wasn't, working around with it. But it saves time, and I like the effects I can get with it. I tend to spray paint like I paint.
Yeah.
Lots of light, loose layers, and I like the colors to show through each layer, and then come in with some solid lines. And by no means the best spray paint artist,
Yeah.
but I like my style and I like how it's coming along. And the last mural I did, I got a hell of a lot of practice with lines, you know. So that's definitely my preference for painting murals outside.
Cool. And what happened 5 years ago that you decided this is what I'm doing?
Okay. Well, the story goes back a little further,
Okay,
actually.
all right.
So I was a graphic designer
Okay.
for 12 years.
Okay.
2 of them freelance.
Yep.
And then 10, I worked for a printing company, AA Label, which is in New Kensington.
Yep.
I was miserable all 12 years doing it. I don't like computers. I don't like being on a computer to create. It's not my thing.
Yeah.
I can appreciate people who do it.
Yeah.
I can appreciate, but for me, it's not tangible enough. So I was really miserable, which made my wife really miserable, which made life that much more miserable than it already tends to be.
And she was there all 12 years.
Oh,
How
absolutely.
long have you been married?
16.
16.
Just celebrated 16.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
12 years is a long time to
Yeah.
hate what you're doing.
It is, but we had a kid
Yeah.
halfway through it.
Yep.
And that changes things.
Certainly does.
You know, I
It doesn't matter if you like it or not. You
no,
gotta do it.
exactly. And I worked my ass off for about 9 or 10 months before my daughter was born.
Right.
And trying to find another job.
Okay.
We were trying, not trying, but I just wanted out. The business was relocating to New Kensington. I didn't want to drive all the way out there every day.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. I had interviews. I couldn't get my foot in the door anywhere.
What were you trying to do? What was your goal?
I was staying in graphic
Yeah,
design.
okay.
I mean, that's what my degree was in.
Right.
That's the work I've been doing.
Gotcha.
But it's really competitive. You got a couple art schools here in town that just generate graphic designers every quarter, plus CMU.
Yeah. You got people moving from all over the country.
Absolutely.
Come here.
Absolutely. It's an extremely competitive field.
Mm.
And my portfolio wasn't that strong because my heart wasn't into it.
Right.
I mean, I half-assed it through school. I got good grades.
Yeah.
And the things I really liked, I worked really hard on.
Sure.
But the subjects I didn't.
Yeah.
I passed marketing. I didn't go to that class. I went once, and I got a C in marketing, and I just don't.
Some people, you get it enough.
Yeah.
You don't really need this.
Yeah.
Right.
So my daughter comes along, and watching her grow and develop, watching her scribble. You and I talked about that at lunch. You know, that first line.
Right.
You know, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And even now, I watch her draw, and I don't watch what she's drawing. I watch her face.
Yeah.
Because she's just so into it and so creative, and everything just comes out freely.
She doesn't have any expectations. She doesn't have anyone worried about
No,
her. She doesn't have anyone that's going to look at it.
And she has no inhibitions with what she's creating.
Right.
I'm starting to notice that she's starting to be critical of her work, though.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I feel about that.
Right.
But I suppose that's natural.
Right.
So,
real quick, when you get lost in your work, are you able to not be so critical, or are you able to kind of get into a place where that's...
I'm not terribly critical of my own work.
Okay.
I know everything I've done can be better.
Fair.
But I think the biggest thing I've learned is when to say, that's good enough.
Yeah.
And not good enough in a I'm mailing it in kind of way, but good enough that
you can keep perfecting it forever.
you could keep going and going. And I was a perfectionist for a long time. I quit art, drawing, painting, anything for almost 10 years.
Wow.
Because I hated the perfectionism that I expected of myself.
Right.
But anyway, back to point.
Yeah.
My daughter was born, and leading up to that, I created the nursery. I painted a mural in her room, Dr. Seuss mural, and it was really fun. It was all the characters, and I set it in the landscape of the truffula trees, and and I loved that room. It was an awesome room, and that really got me thinking about doing that.
Was that the first time you touched a brush in a while?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
So 10 years, was it 10 years?
It was close to that. It was close to 10 years.
Yeah.
I still, her nursery was my studio
Yeah.
before,
Okay.
but really it was just a junk room. My desk had stuff
Right.
on it, and there was a lot of ambition just buried under the papers and
Yeah.
supplies and things. But I hadn't at that point. I didn't paint much.
Yeah.
And after she came along, that's when I really started to get back into it.
Got it.
That creativity that a little kid
Yeah.
brings out. If you're willing to notice it, if you're willing to pay attention,
Right.
it's amazing.
Absolutely.
We let her paint her door,
Okay.
into the hallway. She
Yeah.
can paint it whatever the hell she wants.
Yeah.
Whatever color she wants.
Okay.
And it's been fun to watch that progress.
You let her continually do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
I paint walls. How can I tell her
Right.
not to paint walls?
Of course. No. Go for it.
So when she got out of preschool and started kindergarten, we didn't have those daycare costs anymore.
Right.
And figured at that point it was as good a time as any to take a leap and see what
Cool.
happens.
Cool.
And it still is hard. It's still very terrifying at
Right.
times, frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
The good times are really high, the bad times are really low.
Right.
And when you're someone like me who's, extremely depressed
Yeah.
and has been for
Yeah.
25 years, it's really hard to cope
I can see
because
that.
everything's on my sleeve.
Right.
But the plus side of that is it also shows in my work.
Right.
So that first year, that first year was horrible. It was horrible. I sold a couple little watercolor paintings.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking to see what would sell.
Okay.
I was trying to find a direction to go.
Yeah.
I was following trends.
Okay.
I was ripping off Pinterest left and right.
Right.
Because I was just so geared towards making a buck.
Got it.
Got to pay the bills.
Sure.
Mortgage, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Ended up I drained my retirement to get through the first year.
Okay.
We declared bankruptcy my second year.
Okay.
Third year was a good year.
Okay.
I got busy in February and stayed busy through the whole year, and that was awesome. But I've had a couple
Right.
down ones since
It happens.
compared.
Right.
And it's just staying on task and setting those goals and still working and not
Right.
getting lost
Right.
in it, in the despair, I guess.
I can see that.
I tell my wife, what else am I going to do? Like,
Right.
I'm so far out of the game right now, I can't go back to being a graphic designer.
Right.
So I'm an artist. That's what I do.
I got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've thought about the same thing. I've worked for myself for 11 years. And, I'm sure there would be some sort of opportunity out there, but it's like, would I want to work for someone else? How would
Mhm.
that work? I'm sure. I've seen the world flip over in my life a couple times.
Yeah.
It's going to happen at some point.
Sure.
But
yeah.
how it happens, I think, is a little bit more under our control because we're a little bit more, we kind of make our own destiny, or it's a little bit more in our court, hopefully,
Yeah.
because we're able to kind of poke
Right,
at things
right.
and see it a little bit bigger picture.
Absolutely.
Real quick, so I had similar opportunity when I started my business. It was when my son was born, and I became a stay-home full-time dad. And my partner at the time, she made more money, so it made more sense for her to work than me. And
Oh, yeah.
so it was a no-brainer. All right, I'm not going to stop you from making twice as much as I do. And I knew I had to do something for money, and I had been in the printing industry. I had already owned a business, and so I took that as my in. As I'm going to take this leap and do it. Otherwise, I would have just been at home making nothing, and so I had to do something. So that was my in, and I obviously had to take that opportunity. I had a business for 7 years out in California and moved out here, and so it was very important for me I knew I wanted to start another business. I just didn't know when or how or what it was going to be. I thought maybe photography. art, maybe. I didn't really know what it was going to be. And I was kind of doing the same thing. I was looking at like those photo booths 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Photo booths were like
Oh yeah,
a big
absolutely.
deal. It had printing, it had photography in it.
Yeah,
And
they're
then,
all over the place collecting
Right. Oh.
dust now.
Right. I can get into it now. But it was a little bit unsettling at
Yeah.
first. You know, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I had to do something, and then it clicked, and I was able to have him with me for the first 14 months. He just every day, he was there. He was my partner. We did deliveries. We met with customers. We did whatever it took, and having that opportunity, I think, is something a lot of people may not be either able to identify or be patient enough to wait for it, and when they do see it, then they're able to jump on it.
Yeah,
You know?
I think I agree. And I wouldn't even say be patient enough to wait for it. It's more like be patient enough for the work to pay off.
Fair.
Yep. Waiting, I don't like that. It feels like it's too complacent. It's too the expectations and hope.
Right.
I do that all the time.
That's fair.
All the time. Like every
Yeah.
day I'm checking I hope somebody bought a painting. I hope somebody responded to this email.
Right.
You know, and it's
But what are you going to do to actually make that happen?
exactly,
Right.
exactly. And it's constant follow up.
Yep.
Constant follow up until I hear a no.
Yeah.
I'll show up at the door.
Keep knocking.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey,
Good.
just touching base. You know,
Right.
where are we at with this?
Right.
And that's paid off more often than not.
I can
Because
imagine.
because everybody else has a life too.
Right.
Clients have a life. They're busy. It's easy for them to put a project off
Yep.
when other priorities are at hand. Yeah.
But on the same note, there's a lot of artists out there, but there's a lot of artists that don't follow up, and there's a lot of
Right.
artists that don't call back, and
Right.
that are too. When you have that, art versus math brain, and if you're a really good artist but you're not good at the business end,
Yeah.
then that could definitely make a difference. And if
Absolutely.
you can hone in on that, on leveling it out, that's a huge skill.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
huge skill.
And so many of us are introverted.
Right.
And so putting ourselves out there it doesn't come naturally.
Right.
It has to be, I work at it every day. I just,
Sure.
if it's uncomfortable, I'm going to do it.
Good.
And I didn't
growth.
used to be that way.
No.
It wasn't up until, really I ran first marathon. The
Okay.
training
Yep.
for that really is kind of like, I realized I can be disciplined.
When was that?
2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Yeah. And, or 2015, 2016 I ran the half, but
Okay.
the training for that's really where I found myself.
Okay.
Yeah, going out for 20-mile runs. I loved
Right.
that.
You pushed
Absolutely loved it. Because that would just be me. I didn't listen to music.
it. Okay.
I tried to run with other people, but they annoy me because they want to talk.
Yeah.
And I don't like to talk when I'm running. I like to that's Zen time,
Yeah. Fair.
But that gave me a lot of confidence to do what I'm doing.
Got it.
A lot of confidence, and I started to see an uptick in business
Mm-hmm.
as a result, not solely of that,
Yeah.
but because of that, and because of the different areas of my life that impacted.
Right. Right.
I think. Yeah.
You've been able to travel a little bit, and do you have any plans to travel some more? Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, I always have plans to travel. I always
with
want to travel.
Right, of course.
So I got to fly out to Vegas to paint a mural,
Yeah.
and that was totally crazy. And I got a text about a couple weeks before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
This guy said, "Hey, I saw your mural in a bar in Pittsburgh. I'm opening a place up out here." Didn't say where here was, but he had an LA area code on the phone, right? And so I thought it was bullshit. And I went and asked my wife, I was like, "Is this like some kind of new fishing thing?"
Right.
And she says, "I don't know, Tim. That sounds a little more personable. It can't hurt to at least call and see what's up."
Right.
And I called him, and we had several conversations about different possibilities. They had seen the mural I did at Muddy Waters with help from Muldoon.
Cool.
And they wanted that mural. for a restaurant pub that they're opening in Vegas.
Yeah.
And we talked about different ways of doing that, and ultimately came to the decision to fly me out
Okay.
and actually paint another mural out there.
Cool.
And I jumped at that. I was like, I charge a third of what I wanted for the size of the mural it was.
Right.
You know, but they flew me out. They put me up. It was a great experience, and why everyone here was freezing their asses off that first week in January. You know, I was out there enjoying the sun.
Nice.
And I'd never been to Vegas, and I absolutely loved it.
Cool.
Loved it. I'm not a gambler, so I didn't do any of that.
Got it.
But the landscape around there, the openness, the weather, and it's a really good art scene out there.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would expect that. So.
What, in Vegas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You tell me. I don't know. I mean, I've been a few times, but either passing through or I'm there with family and we're hotels and casinos, you know.
Right.
So tell me what the art scene's like out there.
Well, I mean, what I mean by art scene, I guess, is it's a buyer's market out there. Work is going to sell out there quicker and easier than it does here. And I started doing a lot of research when I got home because I've always wanted to move out west to the Southwest, Colorado, somewhere out that way, and hope to someday. You know, we'll see what family life impacts that.
Sure.
You know, but I see art as a way of navigating that course. So I started looking into different galleries out there and seeing what the markets are like, and really liked it.
Cool.
You know, I think Pittsburgh has a great art community.
We do.
It's growing. I love the networking. I've been working hard to meet other artists and people in that field. Right. You know,
we have a really good community of artists, and I feel like the artists are really supportive of each other. Yeah. How do you feel about the market of how the actual buying market in Pittsburgh is?
Well, I'm fairly new.
Yeah.
On the scene.
Okay.
And so I don't really know how to judge that. I know there's some extremely successful artists here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, that's true. Absolutely.
Some really successful artists. There are also a lot of artists I know who are frustrated with the market here.
Right.
Who don't feel that it's a good market. So I don't know. My experience has been when I finally had my first opportunity to put the series of paintings that I'm doing now on a wall someplace for a night, for a benefit.
Right.
I didn't think anything would sell.
Right.
You know, I've been throwing everything against the wall I could, trying to sell stuff, and nothing had worked. So I went into it. People will finally at least get to see this outside of my studio. Yeah. You know, outside of artificial lighting as good as it can get. Right. I ended up selling a third of my work that night, and I was blown away. Yeah. Including one of the bigger pieces I took. And since then I've sold several others and have interest in more. Cool. I think it's a matter of what you're selling and what you're marketing, and knowing who the clientele are. Right. You know, it's really important to find who your market is. Yeah. You know, who do you want to sell to? Right. And then figure out how to get to those people, how to get to that audience. Right. Social media only goes so far for me. So, you know, I don't think I've sold anything via social media. Right. You're able to connect. Maybe to connect, but maybe a couple pieces. I take that back. I did just sell a couple pieces via social media. But I haven't found it to be, I'm not hunting for likes. Yeah. You know, I don't need the ego stroked. I need my wallet full. Right. You know? That's what we're working for. But I like social media. You know, I like to put my stuff out there. I like to see what other artists are doing. Sure. Sometimes I got to stop following artists because when I'm at a low place and they're at a high place, I don't want to dislike them. Right. But it's just sort of that envious, like, son of a bitch, how are they doing that? Right, you know? Right. But Muldoon is John consistently killing it. John is I love that guy. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Yeah. Like his energy, his passion for art, and his appreciation for art, not just what he does, but like
Right.
all art.
Right.
That kind of energy.
I've never heard him turn down a collab.
No,
Like,
no, he
like, okay.
wants to work with people.
Right.
He wants to he is an artist in the truest sense.
Yeah.
And the more time I spend with him, and the more I watch him,
Yeah.
the more I like him.
Yeah.
But also the more I recognize that. Like, he just gets giddy and excited around, like, he was in front of Picasso.
Yeah.
When he was in New York City, and he was just like losing it. Like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And I love that passion.
Yeah.
And sometimes I find when I'm in a really low place, I need to call him. I need to work with him.
Okay.
In fact, he was the only guy. He called me. I had a pretty bad experience a while back.
Right.
He called me twice just to check up on me, see how I'm doing. And that's the kind of guy John is.
Right.
So I like collaborating with him. I
Cool.
like just seeing what happens.
Yeah. He's
but
not even at his peak yet.
no, he's not even close.
No.
That's but he's getting better and better,
Right.
and he's finding his market.
It's good.
And that's what's going to work is for any artist.
Right.
We could throw stuff up in every coffee shop in the world, but
Sure.
people go to coffee shops to get coffee.
Right.
Yeah, maybe you'll
Sure.
be lucky to sell a painting, but
Yeah.
they're not there for that.
Nah. And with a buyer, you never know what it's going to be. It might match. There might be a color in your painting that matches their sofa, and they're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, that would go." You know what I mean? Like it's not. You just have to do what you're doing and put it out there.
Right.
And
Right.
you never know. Roll the dice, see if it hits. If you can show it to more people, that's how you're going to sell it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about entrepreneurship and working with depression and working through it. What is that to you, and how do you get through it?
It's a really heavy question.
Yeah, it is.
I put it into my work.
Okay.
It's important. It's important to me that my work is authentic.
Yeah.
And authentic to who I am.
Yeah.
I don't believe in originality. I just don't think it exists.
Okay.
I think we're just presenting
Mm-hmm.
old things in new ways.
Right.
So.
I wrote something on my Twitter a few weeks ago, and I think it might have been influenced by our lunch.
Oh, okay.
And I said, if you can't be original, be authentic.
Yeah.
'Cause no one can duplicate that.
Right. It's I just can't.
Right.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it. So I think being authentic has
Mhm.
been really important. So I spent a lot of this journey figuring out how to express what it's like to be depressed,
Okay.
to live like that.
Interesting.
Because it's not easy,
No.
and it's not that I'm sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I'm just tired. Things are darker. It's harder to get up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I wanted to present that without being overt about it,
Hmm.
without painting some guy in a dark corner,
Right.
balled up.
Right.
Right. And so I started redirecting my work in that direction. And I spent about 2 or 3 years maybe painting several things, trees,
Yeah.
really sort of sad looking trees. The paintings were good, but as my wife told me, she's like, Tim, no one wants to hang they're really good paintings, but nobody wants to hang a depressing tree in their room,
Right.
Some people did though, so
Sure.
she's wrong. And then I started moving into these portraits on Shakespeare
Okay.
series that I did quite a few of. And that was born out of actually a really bad depressive episode. I was sleeping 2 hours a day. Just couldn't. I just couldn't get going.
Yeah.
The medication wasn't helping. I might have even gone off it at that time. You start feeling good, and you're like, I don't need this
Right.
anymore.
Right.
And I've learned after several times, I need that. And I started creating these really quick, loose portraits. And I'd do a number of them, and then I'd take my time to paint them, watercolors. And the paper's over 100 years old.
Wow.
I was tearing pages out of books printed in 1901.
Nice.
But they weren't valuable.
Right.
Yeah, they were so. I tried to sell them, and I was told they're so mass-produced back at the turn of the century. These
Okay.
Shakespeare collections and Dickens collections.
Yeah.
That they don't hold much value.
Okay.
Only like maybe first editions that have gold inlay.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So anyway, I didn't feel bad doing that.
Gotcha.
So I would do that. I would just make these quick 1-minute sketches. If it was more than a minute, I threw it away because then I started thinking about it. I didn't want to think about it.
Interesting.
And after I'd painted, I'd read the page, and somehow I always found the perfect title within that page. So I did a number of those. And then I did a show with Red Fishbowl one night,
Yeah.
the mural battle down at Belvedere's.
Yeah.
And there's my work hanging up.
Yeah.
And I'm looking around, and you can't see my work. Not just because the lighting wasn't good, but because everything was dark.
Yeah.
Everyone else's work was sort of bright. And I walked over to Kevin Mack. His stuff was there. I'd never met him before. Introduced myself.
Okay.
Loved his work. Loved his color choice. Everything about it.
Yep.
And I can't remember exactly what he said to me, but I walked away thinking, paint how you want to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started changing directions. And the first thing I did was I got out my oil paints, and I squeezed out colors that I ordinarily would not use, brighter colors.
Yep.
And I just started texturing really thick, just putting it on and building and creating. Almost all my oil paintings have a light source that's in the middle or in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And really just up until recently, I hadn't viewed it as spiritual work, as journey pieces, trying to get to the light, not trying to get to that place where it can be calm and content, and where that weight of just another fucking day, I don't want to do another day,
right?
And it's not that depressives want to die,
right.
When you hear about that, they're tired of living,
right? It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It is an absolutely lot of work, and so I wanted to get away from that a little bit, and these oil paintings kind of brought all my influences together, and I was onto something. I was onto that authentic work that I've been striving to get to, and it continues to develop. I continue to work it and play around with it, and I'm interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah,
likewise.
Thanks.
Yeah, the last piece you did, the most recent one is that big wall, right? The big white wall.
The mural?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one out in Arnold. Yeah.
And that's super bright.
Yeah.
And very colorful, and I've seen some of the other work, Muddy Waters, and that is it
Kahuna. Yeah.
Right next door. That's where we had lunch, and it was really good. Definitely check it out if you're in Pittsburgh. And that mural with the sea turtle and everything. I mean, it doesn't do it justice. The pictures that you have up don't even do it justice. You gotta go check it out.
Thanks.
So and the colors in that, absolutely it sparkles. Jumps out at you. That's interesting to kind of focus on that, to paint what you want to paint, be who you want to be, feel the way you're hoping to push your energy in that direction. I think that there's a lot of value there. So it's a good lesson. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Sure. I found with murals, colors were never an issue. I kind of consider myself a utilitarian muralist. What do you want? I'll do it.
Yeah.
I have done a
little less about you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've done a Hogwarts, World of Harry Potter room.
Okay.
I've done gone from that to doing fish swimming around a circuit board.
Right.
Oh,
okay.
And it's some of the ones that I get to do where they want something specifically.
Yeah.
They're fun. Others are just, all right, I'll do that. Don't want to do that, but I need paid.
Sure.
And then I get the ones like out in Arnold, where they just say, do something really cool. Nice. Yeah, and I get to just do something really cool, and they trust me to do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Where you mentioned some influences, but you didn't say who they were. So what would be some of your?
Well, I love the Impressionists. So going back,
Yeah.
I got to look at Manet and Van Gogh, Degas, the Fauvism. I love the bright colors of that.
Yeah.
Really, everything from the late 1800s, right up through pop art and modern art.
Okay.
You get before that to the Romantics, and I used to really love that kind of work.
Yeah.
But with the exception of what's him, Caravaggio, who for his time was a complete badass.
Yeah.
Like he was out stabbing people, then out painting. In bar fights. He didn't even sketch out his drawings. He just painted them right on. And they're, in my opinion, they're almost like he's that kind of guy who went against the grain, a lot like the Impressionists did.
Yeah.
And they wanted to, they saw light differently. They saw, they were a little looser with their work. And that grew into those post-Impressionists that, went even further.
Yeah.
And then you get into Edward Hopper is another one I love. And I think that's more of an emotional piece because his all of his work feels so lonely.
Yeah.
And bare. There's just something about that I connect with. Contemporaries from right around here, Mia Tarducci, her work is, phenomenal. Like, it's just stunning work. John is definitely an influence of mine.
Yeah.
He might not know it,
Yeah.
but there are times when I'm like, all right, what would John do? What would
Right.
it's just
now do you have like books that you go through, or do you go to a museum, or do you like how do you connect? Do you just remember it? What's your?
I have books.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a series of books on the Impressionists, and some of the early abstract artists, Paul Klee, who I really like his work. I like how it changed so much. I like to see where artists grow and change.
Right.
That's why Picasso is so brilliant, because not just because of his work, but it's because of how he adapted and changed, and he did all these different things.
Right.
Yeah. So I look for development and growth in that, in the artists that I really enjoy being around.
Interesting.
That's. I don't like stagnant.
Yeah.
I don't like staying in place.
Yeah.
It might be an unfair criticism, and I might be way wrong, and I don't mean to offend anybody.
Sure.
But I feel like once you get to that place where you're like a Kincaid and you're painting the same really safe landscape with, over and over and over again. Now, maybe he's got something private on the side. He does, where he's drawing like burning bridges and destruction and, Saturn eating his children kind of stuff. But that's what I look for. That's what I like. I like to see development constantly. I hope I never get complacent enough that I'm painting 20 years from now the exact same painting that I'm doing now. Might be the same style, might be the same colors, but
I could imagine that could be frustrating for some artists if you find a niche and then it's a gold mine, and then you have to keep it. There's so many people that want it, and they're going to spend so much money. You have to keep doing it, and then if you venture out of that, maybe you lose some of that audience. So you have to just stay with it and keep going. I get if you're at that point. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah,
I think so. I think a lot of artists get pigeonholed into a certain category or a certain niche, like you said.
Yeah. There has to be a point where it's like, all right, that's enough. I'm going to stop doing this at year 10 and just like it or not.
Right.
I got to progress.
But on the same breath, some people really enjoy that. That's what they enjoy doing, and that's what they want to do.
Right.
And their work still improves. Let's say you're a pet portrait artist.
Sure.
Right. The very first one you got hired to do.
Yeah.
I really hope it's a lot worse than the one you do 15, 20 years later.
Correct.
Correct. I hope there's been a lot of improvement and change, or maybe technique.
Right.
All this,
Absolutely.
you can stay with the same subject matter, but still develop and change.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Interesting. So I'm always trying to figure out where I'm going to adapt, whether it's as a person or in the business. And I'm in a business where adapting is definitely key, because I'm in the printing industry. In the printing industry, everyone says it's a dying industry. Quick printing, which is running a copier, it's decreasing by at least 1 to 3% per year. So I have to figure out how can I be the best, and how can I rule out the other business, and how can I. But then it's not just printing; it's advertising, marketing,
Right.
and how can I make that flow into my business and work that in. Graphic design, that's a major part, obviously, of printing. And then what other aspects of printing can we get into? What other markets are there that we can work with, that we can draw some business? And I mean, we've doubled every year for 4 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's been amazing. I'm probably not going to do it this year, because that's a lot. But who knows? Maybe.
Hey, this year's felt weird to me.
Yeah.
It's had a weird feel. I've talked to some other people, and they've said the same thing. It's I don't know how to describe it, but the work just hasn't been there this year like it has in the past, and
I can see that.
I feel like I've gotten ghosted a little more often. People, hey, let's do this, and then they're just gone.
Gotcha.
One thing I learned early on was just to be able to handle rejection.
Yeah.
And not take it personal.
Yeah.
Not to say, hey, I might be doing this with the same enthusiasm as, hey, I got this. Until the contract's signed.
Right.
There's nothing set in stone.
Right. I hear that I hear people all the time who are bragging about the thing that's coming up next when they haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
So hold on a second.
It's easy to do,
right.
though. It's easy to do because we want to be successful, and we want to put that image out that we are successful.
Absolutely.
That we are doing well.
And we want to be excited about what's coming.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
What would you say if you had some advice for anyone that was starting out? Where would you hope that they would start with?
Have a plan.
Yeah.
Have a short plan for short term.
Okay.
And then a long term goal. I wouldn't go into it just saying I'm going to be an artist and I'm going to be famous.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how are you going to do that?
Right.
What's your short term game for this year?
Yeah.
What are the benchmarks you're setting for this year?
Yeah.
Okay. And then
a lot of people don't realize, if you want to be an artist and you want to continue doing that and you want to do it long term, you got to lay some groundwork.
Absolutely.
But you also have to have some lofty goals. 10, 20 years.
And it's you go back to that question, that dreaded question in interviews. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Right.
And you have to ask yourself that question.
Right.
I went into this. I did not have a short-term plan or a long-term plan. I'm just going to be an artist. I paint.
Yeah.
I'm going to sell stuff.
Yeah.
I wasn't interested in being famous, but I did want to be successful, and I still believe that I will be financially successful doing what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
It's not necessarily up to me to decide when that happens. I just got to keep doing what I'm doing, and hopefully I fall into that place.
Right.
But definitely before taking that leap, sit down, write down some short-term goals that you want.
Okay.
This year I want to sell 5 original paintings, or this year I want to be in so many shows.
Right.
Next year I want to gain representation.
Yeah.
Next year, just work it bit by bit. And maybe don't jump into it with both feet right off the bat.
Yeah.
Because it is art. I mean, it's a tough racket. There's a lot of us out there.
Yeah.
And it's really scary going out on your own, and it's liberating, but it's also terrifying because you have no one to fall on. It's all on you. And it's even, that weight is even heavier being married and having a kid.
Absolutely.
And those type of responsibilities. It changes perception, and age changes perception. When you're in your 20s, it's balls to the wall.
Sure.
There's little thought about repercussion.
My idea, because I had the printing business when I was young. I started when I was 18. I had it for 7 years, and the idea was, well, I got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
But literally strip that down, I had nothing to lose.
Right.
I had nothing. I had nothing. Like,
yeah.
take it from me. Like,
Right.
Because you can't take nothing from nothing.
Yeah.
So just go 1,000 miles an hour towards whatever it is you're trying to do. Hope it works.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you got to slow it down a little bit.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you get to your 30s and
Yeah, well, we get to our 30s,
right.
and it's typically when we start having kids,
right.
get married.
Yep.
You start settling in, and then psychologically, your brain changes.
Yeah.
And that la-di-da kind of way of flowing through life.
Yeah.
Doesn't you start to realize I have responsibilities.
Absolutely.
And things start to change.
Yep.
I'm in my 40s now, and I love being in my 40s.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get perspective and starting to be able to sit back and recognize where other people are when they're sharing their stories or enthusiasm.
Right.
And see a lot of how I was, but also have the perspective and knowledge too, to like realize I don't know very much.
Right.
And my daughter doesn't get that. I'm like, there's a lyric in one song, the more I see, the less I know.
Right.
And she's like, how can you see so much and learn less? And it's all about changing our perceptions.
Right.
We have perception. I had a perception about Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I thought I had no desire to go there, but then I went there and it completely changed.
Right.
So I think age does that too. That's definitely a factor. But I would say go into it with two plans: a short plan and then a long game.
Awesome. And don't be afraid to reflect on that, change it.
Right. And you got to be flexible. You got to be ready to roll.
That brings me into my next question. I got 2 questions left.
Okay.
So I subscribe to adapt or die, obviously, what I was saying earlier. And I think that you've done a great job figuring out, okay, murals is the direction I need to go. I'm going to do that, but there's a point where you want to stop it. Is there any other art other than oil that you could see yourself doing that you may see, if maybe not so much a trend, but something that you're able and willing to do another direction? What do you think that might be?
I have interests.
Yeah.
Nothing that I've done much.
Okay.
I really want to get into sculpting.
Okay.
But I like the whole hammer and chisel type. I did some of that when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I haven't done it since. But there's just something about, I paint like a sculptor.
Okay.
So I put a lot of paint down.
Yeah.
And then I start scraping away until I get what I want.
Right.
And, I think it was Michelangelo that said something paraphrasing that the sculpture is already in there. I just got to get everything out of the way to get to it. Yeah. And I don't know if it's him or not, but and that's kind of how I feel about my paintings. I don't see myself moving out of painting as a primary.
Yeah.
I do paint with some acrylics.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to do a little bit more, but I cannot achieve what I can with oils. Yeah. Because I use a lot of big knives, joint compound knives and putty knives and things like that. Gotcha. And I like to I like how oil paints mix and blend and the colors. Yeah. But if you had asked me 3 years ago, hey, do you plan on doing oils? No, I'm a watercolor artist. Yeah. So I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 years.
Well, let's find out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where can we find you? Where can we follow you?
EngelhardtDesigns.net. And I'm on Instagram at Engelhardt Designs and Facebook /Engelhardt Designs. So I'm out there.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool. Make sure you check them out. This has been Thoughtful Discussions. I'm Josh Snider.